Hey everybody, welcome. I'm so excited for today's video. We're going to be talking about how you can leave your six-figure job in order to be a stay-at-home parent or a work-at-home parent. I'm super excited to share this. I did this in October of 2019. I quit my double six-figure job as a lawyer to be home with my children, and at the time it was a big challenge. So we'll talk all about that, the steps that I took to make it happen, and how you can duplicate those steps in your own life. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome. I am Wendy and welcome to the House of Fi. If you're new here, welcome to our house. And if you are returning, we're so glad that you are here. We are all about helping moms and dads save more, spend less, build wealth, dump debt, and doing it all while living a joy-filled life. As you heard in the intro, I left my job as a lawyer in October of 2019. I had had my own practice for about 11 years. I went out on my own in 2007 after being a public defender for about 4 years. And so the bulk of my business was primarily criminal defense, major felonies. So they were big cases, serious cases, and it really provided for my family an excellent income. My husband has always been a school teacher, and so I was the breadwinner in our family. But our lives changed. If you've heard anything about our story, you know that we ended up deciding to add to our family in about 2011. Our intention was to adopt one little boy. We had it in our minds. We were going to adopt a little boy to provide a brother and playmate for our son at the time, who was 8, but God had something different in mind for us, and we got our first son, Jacob, and he was 3 weeks old at the time. And through a process of a whole bunch of other events that I can share sometime else, altogether we ended up adopting 4 boys. And so needless to say, our family of 4 exploded to a family of 8 in a really short period of time. And I just found that I was not being the best that I could be, both in my practice and what I wanted to be for our boys. They were all little. The youngest was, we got him at 2 days old. And then the oldest of the 4 little ones was 3.5. And so as you can imagine, having 3 of them in diapers, but basically 4 toddlers all at once, trying to run my own business and maintain our household, it was just crazy nuts. To shorten this story down to a whole bunch, I knew that I was burning out, and I was burning out quickly. What I want to dive into real quick is the process that I went through, and I have a printable worksheet for you that you can work through this process as well in your own life. You know, the first question that you're going to have to answer is, what is it that you want to do to be working or staying at home? Is it that you want to be completely a stay-at-home parent so that you can be available for your family? Is it more that maybe you want to travel? Or maybe you have parents that you need to take care of, or you have this idea for a business that you want to work and grow from home and take care of your family. All of that's going to take some preparation. And so in my circumstance, we couldn't just immediately cut my salary. And so to give me more runway and kind of put off this burnout, the first thing that I did was I changed the type of cases that I took. I suggest maybe doing some of the things that I did to give yourself more time. I changed the scope of the work that I did, so I no longer was doing criminal trial work. I decided to do appellate work. And then after about a year of doing appellate and what's called post-conviction relief, which is a different kind of challenge to a conviction, I switched it over to just PCRs, or post-conviction relief, because each one of those required a different time commitment from me, and it gave me more time to do all the things in the background that I needed to do to get ready. So that's the first question, is figuring out, you know, what it is that you want to quit your job. Why is it that you want to quit your job and be at home? I'm going to pull up the worksheet up on the screen as well, so you can kind of follow along with these steps and how we figure out what you need to do. The next thing is you have to have a good idea of what your net income is. So what is it that you will be losing if you quit your job from your entire household budget? And then of course, along with that, you need to know your household budget. From there, we're going to start doing some calculations. We are going to first calculate what staying at home will save you. Perhaps you're not going to have childcare expenses anymore. Perhaps you're not going to have any more transportation expenses, or they'll be reduced. It could be that your meals out are going to be reduced. So list everything that is going to be put back into your pot and get a total for that. And then the flip side of that is also figure out that there may be some expenses that increase for you by staying home all the time. You might have an increase in your electricity costs, or maybe your employer was paying for your cell phone and now you have to pay for it yourself. So you want to be aware of those things too. Insurance, retirement savings, get those figures. Once you have those figures, you're going to dig into the actual calculation to figure out the gap between what your monthly budget needs and what where it's at if you are to stay home with all of these other considerations. So step one is taking your monthly budget and deducting your initial net paycheck. That is going to be your initial budget shortfall. Then from there, you're going to take your budget shortfall and subtract all of the things that you're saving, because that's actually going to reduce the amount of money that you're going to need to fill that gap you need to fill every month. And that's going to give you your revised budget shortfall. Then the last step is taking that revised budget shortfall and adding to it the additional expenses that you're going to incur when you are working from home. And that is going to give you either, if it's at zero, great, you're good to go. You have figured it out. You can go give your notice and be on your way. Same thing if you then have a budget surplus. You're in a really good spot. You're able to stay home and actually have some extra cash to put away towards savings. But more likely the scenario is that you have an income gap. And that is going to need to be filled. And so that's what the bulk of the remainder of this video is going to be about, is working through that process. And so where we are now is filling the gap. To fill the gap, you can do it in one of three ways. Either you can simply use your savings account, and in order to know how much you are going to need to save, you need to know the duration that you are expecting that you're not going to be working, bringing in an income. And then take the shortfall, times it by the number of months that you anticipate that you're not going to be working. That is the amount that you're going to need to have in a safe savings account, where you're going to be taking a monthly draw from that to cover your income gap. The second option is to increase your income. So maybe there's a side business that you know that you want to do. I know a lot of people will do things like VIP Kids, where they can tutor children in China and other countries to speak English, and they do that in hours where either their children are at school or they're sleeping or in the evening. So maybe that's the way that you can reduce that income gap. It'll allow you to be at home, but will also provide the shortfall in your budget to enable you to do that. The final option is to do some additional decreasing of your expenses. And this is actually the route that we chose to go, because we were in so much debt at the time and really not being responsible with our income. And so I'm going to link up above some of the videos where we talk about our process for putting money back in our budget. But when we started this journey and found financial independence community, and I knew that I wanted to stay home, we were in $1 million worth of debt. It was crazy debt. We were spending like $18,000 to $20,000 a month on nothing, on primarily debt service and just really being careless with our money. And so the process that we went through to kind of figure out, okay, what can we cut, is the first thing that we did is we were ruthless about cutting things out of our budget. So we looked at our bank statements, we found what we were spending our money on, and we asked a question: is this something that we need in our lives anymore? Can we cut it entirely, or can we reduce this? We did that with every single thing. We also paid off debt. The first step in paying off our debt is we looked at what was taking the most out of our monthly budget, because for us, the first thing that we needed, my glasses keep falling down. The first thing that we needed to do was reduce our monthly expenses. So I found the one or two things in our budget that was costing me a whole bunch every single month, but I knew that if we focused on it, we could pay it off in 2 to 3 months. That would give us huge room in our budget right away and give us some immediate wins. So that was the first step. Then the second step is we began doing a debt snowball. And if you're not sure what a debt snowball is, I think it's made most popular by Dave Ramsey, but I'll link another video up above of the explanation for it. It's essentially taking all of your debt and putting it in the order smallest to largest, and you start paying off smallest to largest. You're focusing your attention on the smallest one first. You're putting all extra money into that one, and everything else you are paying the minimum payment on. Then once that smallest one is paid off, you then take whatever you were throwing at that one and you throw it to the next smallest one. You pay that off and you do it again. You rinse, recycle, and repeat. Then, so those were the first two things that we did. The third thing that we did is we transitioned to what is called a debt avalanche. Debt avalanche is extremely similar to the debt snowball, but you're focusing on those things that have a high interest rate first. You're getting those out of the way first because interest costs you more money. It's less money in your pocket that is working for you. So once we paid off all the small stuff and we got to the balances that were a few $1,000s that were going to take us a little bit longer to pay off, we switched to the debt avalanche system for those. The final step that we took to decrease our monthly expenses was we sold our house. And I've talked about the reason that we sold our house in a couple different videos. There's also a blog where I go into pretty in depth about why we chose that option. But the final step was to sell our house. It allowed us to pay off the rest of our consumer debt so that we're consumer debt free. It also, we decided to rent, and we were saving from our mortgage to now being renters. We're saving an additional $1,000 to $1,100 a month, depending on the time of year. And then the third thing that it allowed us to do was become landlords and put the rest of that money from the sale of our house into investment properties, which now provide us with income. So even though we were focusing on number 3, which was reducing our expenses, we ended up doing 2 things to close that gap for us, for me to be able to stay home, and that is creating income and reducing expenses. Altogether, we reduced our monthly spending by over $10,000, right? That's a lot. So we live in Southern California now. My husband is still a teacher, and we are able to live very, very frugally on just his salary. I'm able to stay home with my kids, and I'm growing a business to give us more money to throw into our retirement as we go through this process. So that's really it, guys. Those are the steps that you can follow in order to create a roadmap for you to quit your job and be at home, or start a home-based business, or travel, or whatever it is that you want to do, or that's prompting you to really want to quit your job. You can do it. There are so many ways around it. If you're maybe a single income household, I would say that you can do this too. It's just that it's going to be probably more of a situation where you're doing those things on the side, and it might be a longer runway for you. Maybe you're creating a business on the side, or you're saving money on the side to take some time off. So it is possible to do it. It's going to be a little bit harder. That's just the nature of dual income versus single income. But it is possible, and these steps are for everybody. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you for coming, and if you haven't subscribed, please do, and select that notification bell so you get notified of when we have more videos, because we want to lock arms with you in this journey to financial independence. All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here. Take care.